welcome to another RNS Facebook Live. We're so glad to see everyone tonight. So, boy, I haven't been in the hot seat for almost a week now. Actually, I think it's been 2 weeks.
I think it's been 2 weeks. That's okay.
Oh, so it was nice having a little break after the conference. It was a great conference. And so tonight we're going to be talking about some school issues and how COVID has impacted the back to school days. So, Carrie, what do you think about this whole back to school thing? You're the one who has kids going back to school.
Right.
I think it's, I think it's a very hard decision. I think every family needs to kind of decide what's best for them, for their situation, for their kids. For us, we are planning on sending our kids back in full time. We have the option of virtual versus all in, basically. So that's, I think spring kind of opened our eyes to some issues, with the kids that, like, maybe they're not the best online learners. I thought they would be great, but it wasn't the best for our family. It wasn't best for us. So off we go to school in a couple of weeks.
All right. Well, that sounds awesome. So what kinds of precautions are being made where your kids are going?
So I will tell you, I actually just had 2 hours of sessions this afternoon that the school presented, and it was amazing. The school, this is a new school for us. We're actually switching schools. So the girls will be starting out, in a brand new school. So that's kind of scary anyway. Then, throw in a pandemic where you can't really go in and meet anybody. But I feel like they've thought of everything. So kids are all going to be, and it's a big building, thankfully, and it's they have a lot of room to socially distance. So they have they've cut down the cafeteria and they've broken that into classrooms. The gym has been broken into classrooms. All the desks are 6 feet apart. They have to wear masks. Masks are mandated. What else? Oh, they have sneeze guards, which I had never heard of. But they're like plastic shields that the kids will put around their desk. And the middle schoolers, I have a 7th grader, so they may have to switch classrooms, whereas the lower grades, they're trying to just have the teachers move to the different classrooms. So the kids won't move, the teachers will move to them. But if you have to move, you take your sneeze guard shield with you. It has Velcro on the bottom, and then you just put it on your whatever desk you're sitting at.
So they march through the school with their sneeze guard in hand.
Walking through the halls with their shield. I love it.
It's hysterical. I was like, okay, I never even knew sneeze guard was a thing, but it is. And just lots of cleaning in between classes. I really do. I feel like they've thought of just about everything. Their sick kid protocol is probably gonna get my kids sent home. If they present to the nurse with basically any kind of cold symptom, cough, sneezing, obviously fever, a whole slew of things, they will get sent home. If they have any symptoms of COVID, they will send the child home and then any siblings home as well.
Oh,
wow. They're taking it very seriously, which it makes me feel a lot more comfortable. But I also realize that I think we're going to be headed for, they're going to be home for, I think it's cold and flu season too, so they're going to get sent home. So they have a nice virtual option for when that happens. But I will tell you guys, I was really blown away. I feel very, very safe.
It sounds like it's one of the most impressive arrangements that I've heard of yet.
I never, yeah, I actually immediately texted my husband. I was like, I am so impressed by this school and every precaution that they've thought of that I hadn't even thought of. So yeah, I feel comfortable sending them back.
So did they tell you
awesome.
how they will handle any cases that come up? I mean, any of the kids or staff, how are they going to alert people, or what will they do? Because we all know that's going to happen at some point.
Oh yeah, it's going to happen. I don't know how the communication will be. I know if they do exhibit any COVID symptoms, they have to be sent home, and then they either have to be home for 10 days or see the pediatrician. If the pediatrician deems it's not COVID, they can go back with a doctor's note or get tested. And if the test is negative, then they can return to school. And like I said, if one kid tests positive in your family, they're all staying home, and their quarantine time is 10 days. Teacher and staff, I don't know how that, I would assume it would be similar. If they exhibit any symptoms, they'll be at home. They've hired a lot of like teacher's aides or paraprofessionals to be able to manage like the different classrooms. So they're dividing all the kids up. So obviously there's not 30 kids in a classroom. So the way they're setting it up is the teacher will instruct basically one pod of kids, and then the aides will kind of monitor them until the teacher, gets there to do the lesson or the instruction.
Okay.
I feel like the teachers are going to be working so much overtime this year in terms of just from the teachers that I know how they've had to prepare for the school year, but all the extra steps they're taking, and almost double and triple teaching in some ways in order to keep everybody safe.
Yeah. I feel for the teachers. I feel for all the staff. That it cannot be an easy task.
Yeah. Now, the county I live in, our schools have been back for 3 weeks already. The elementary kids are going Monday through Friday. The middle school and high schoolers are going, they divided them by alphabet. So half go 2 days a week, half go the other 2. And then Friday, everybody learns virtually. So they can just fumigate, clean, the schools. But the middle school and high school teachers are, they're teaching the same thing, twice over, every day. So, we'll see. So far we're okay. There's been cases, but nobody's panicking over it. And our surrounding counties haven't gone back yet. And everybody in the state is doing something different.
Yeah.
And it looks like the city of Atlanta schools are not even going to open for this semester. At this point in time, they're going to just go virtually just because of the status of COVID in Atlanta. So it's been hard keeping up with our families in terms of what kind of schooling they're going to do and when they're starting and everything. So the challenge to keep up with it all.
Yes, it is changing every day. I believe it was just yesterday, Michigan State decided that they were doing virtual classes. They weren't starting either. So I know I have some of my kids that are not my bio kids, but other kids, my kiddos from work, they're looking forward to going to the college and universities, and, they're just not really going to be able to probably. But, it's okay. So one of the things that I was hearing just recently, it was interesting. At lunch, I was reading something that was talking about that 1 out of 5 incoming freshmen were going to defer this year because they didn't want to come to campus to do virtual. I mean, they didn't want to do virtual learning. They wanted all of the in-person experience and everything that goes along with the college experience, going to the games, going, to the gathering places and the meeting places and living in the dorms and, the college life.
Right.
And I guess some of the colleges, they're actually, if some of a lot of the colleges are not, I don't know what the right term would be, but they're not, if they've been accepted for their freshman year and they choose not to go, then they have to reapply.
Oh, wow.
Really? Now,
Yeah.
that's typically not how a deferral year works, but
So, so a lot of the universities some of them are doing that. Some of them are actually allowing them to come back. Most universities, though, are allowing the sophomore, junior, and seniors to come back if they defer.
Okay.
If they choose not to go this year, they're letting them come back without having to reapply, just not the freshmen. So, I feel bad for this incoming freshman class for college because, their whole senior year, the end of it was really rocked,
Yes,
the prom was different, the graduation was different, even having graduation parties, with their families even ended up being so different. And so now, I feel really bad for
Right,
them.
they don't get that experience of, freshman year and being the college student. So, yeah. I get that. That would be that's tough.
That's what they look forward to. And,
right.
I was telling Carrie earlier, the number of kids that we've seen in clinic are excited to go back to school. And when they take part of that discussion of, with the parents of them being, nervous and scared and not really wanting them to go back. And the kids are sitting there going, yes, 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 let me out. I want to go. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. So it's hard for some of those kids to, to really understand what the parental concerns are, because they just want out. And if it's school, that's great. I'll learn along with being back with my friends.
Yeah. Yeah. It was funny because, today it was funny today, I was sitting at my desk and I was kind of in between patients and I was thinking about how, we have these different, a different brand of N95s this week. And so the size that I normally wear for this brand is almost too small for me. But the other option is the larger size in the other brand, and it's too big for me.
Oh, no.
And so it's been kind of uncomfortable. I have this, it's been leaving this nice red mark across my nose.
Right.
But if I go up a size, then I can't see so well because it blacks my glasses. And, and I was thinking about this whole thing with the teachers, and how all of us healthcare workers and what we're going through and we're doing, and we're making it all happen, right? We're still seeing patients and, it's all working. And I was thinking, can't the teachers just wear N95s? I mean, serious.
No.
I mean, I'm not kidding. I'm dead serious.
Right.
Can't they just wear N95s and get over it?
Yeah.
And I know teachers are going to hate me and they're going to throw daggers at me now. But I mean, our kids really do need to be in school. We need to be taking a lot of these precautions. But when you're the adult and you have a certain responsibility, isn't part of that responsibility for you doing everything possible that you can?
That's interesting, actually, Kathy. I was just thinking, with our plan at our school, the school nurse will get an N95 mask. But that doesn't make sense because the teachers are with the students all day. So you're absolutely right. I mean, it's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, when we're seeing patients and I'm in a room with a patient for a half hour, 45 minutes, I mean, that's a pretty extended amount of time. Mm-hmm. And so you need an N95 in those situations. And I do. But then when I'm when I'm in the workroom or in other parts of my building, I'm just wearing a surgical mask.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I mean, so if teachers, kind of followed those same principles, where when they're in the classroom and they have the N95 on, then when they go to lunch, just put the surgical mask on, or, that, I mean, I think they could really make it work, and it would protect them, and,
Right.
it would just make it so that, kids could be back in school.
Go back to school. Right. And I think that's the goal. That's what everybody wants. But it's not easy to do. It's going to be a lot of hard work. And,
It is. It's going to be a lot of hard work. And
it's a lot of hard work. It costs the schools a little more because, like Carrie, at your school, they've hired more personnel. And, these schools are our county has a separate group of virtual teachers from the in-person teachers. So that's, more. And, the cost of cleaning the school more often and in a much more, intense way. They're doing more deep cleaning all the time, and other things that they're providing. Like the sneeze shields that you said, I'm sure the school is providing those. They didn't tell you to go out and, and find one. And I like that idea.
School supply list because I wouldn't know where to find it.
Right. Well, we had one mother, and they do private school, but she was, talking about the accommodations, and it sounds very similar. She said they were looking at some kind of plexiglass little shields to put up in between, the desks. And I thought, what a brilliant idea when she said that, because that's just one more thing that will help keep these kids in school and keep everybody protected.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. We put things like that up, in our registration counters, and,
Right.
You're seeing it in different places. You're seeing them in grocery stores, in, your little neighborhood stores, the cashiers. You're seeing it everywhere. So I don't think it's going to be strange for the kids to see those around, because I think they've seen them in the, in the community. I think there are very few kids that have been that self-isolating where they haven't seen some changes in the community.
Yeah.
I think some of the kids that are going to have the hardest time with going back to school with the masking is going to be the kids whose parents may or may not believe in masking, or haven't had the kids wear masks, where it's really become part of their normal routine, where they just don't even think about it anymore. It's like wearing your seatbelt. They just, put it on and go about their business. So if the kids aren't used to wearing the mask, they're probably more likely to feel like we all did, I think, in the beginning, like, oh God, it's so hot. I just can't breathe, it's just too much, and you just kind of want to fidget. But so I think it's important that, just like in the summer, the kids are used to staying up late. And so you got to get them back on that school wake up time again. So you need to start getting them wearing the masks for a while, right?
And that was
so
another part of the plan was to, what did they call it? They called it something like building up some kind of like mask tolerance, maybe.
Yes, exactly.
So they will give them, they're giving them like lanyards to wear around their necks. And then they will have they'll go outside and have like a 5-minute mask break. So they can take their mask.
I love that.
Down. Yeah. I telling you, they thought of everything. But yeah, so to kind of, especially those kids who aren't used to it. And it's up to the discretion of the teacher. So if you look around, especially the, first graders, they're going to start, fidgeting with their masks. And so the teacher can call a mask break. They'll take them outside and give them, social distance, and give them 5 minutes to just kind of breathe.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And that we are, we're going to be able to do that right now. But we may not be able to do that in the winter for those of us that live in the, colder climate.
Yeah. It's not going to last long.
But you also think, though, by then, they're going to be used to it. So for those kids that aren't used to, wearing the mask for prolonged times, by cold and flu season, it's going to be second nature. And I think for all of us, I think about that when I'm in my office and I can just have my, cloth mask on instead of my surgical mask. And, for a while I would get in my office, I'd take it off just to breathe and put it back on to walk around. And then there were days that all of a sudden I'm like, I haven't taken this thing off all day, and it's routine. And I think the kids will, will fall into that. And hopefully the teenagers will as well. I worry a little bit more about, kind of the rebellious side of teenagers that may just say enough is enough and I'm just not going to do this. So, because teenagers are, they're teenagers. But I don't know if I like the lanyards. I know that the two physicians that I work with both have, preschool and kindergarten age children. So they were each issued a nice little lanyard to clip their mask onto, and so they don't ever lose them. And they only take them off at, when they're having lunch and when they're at recess. But so far, both physicians have been surprised that their youngest children are actually keeping their masks on all day, because they're getting little pictures from the teachers and they're like, oh, look, their masks are still on. So I think it's doable. It's just a matter of, getting used to it and knowing that they're not the only kid. Everybody's doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
definitely.
That will help as well.
Yeah. So, hey, a shout out to our Barbara in Cleveland.
Hi,
all right.
Hi, Barbara. Another fellow Barbara.
She's our faithful Barbara. She's here every week, I think.
I know, right? She is. It's like, okay, we need to, have her pull up a chair one week, right?
Yeah.
There we go. I like that idea.
Join us. And how about you guys? Like, what kinds of questions are you getting from parents? I'm sure there's.
Oh, hey, we have Keisha and Heidi and Jacqueline on. All right.
Nice
to see you guys. So the whole mask tolerance. I like that, Carrie. Mask tolerance. I'll have to remember that. That's a great term for it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is. True.
Yes. And so, yes, that's what the kids will build up. And I think they'll do fine. I know today it was funny. It was the first time I was in my car and I had, I went into a store or whatever. And then I got in my car and I'm driving and all of a sudden I realized I've got my mask on. I'm in the car by myself. And it's like, oh my goodness, I'm one of those people.
Take
it off.
I was just gonna say we giggle at those people when we see them. We're like, and they're by themselves, It's like,
well, that was it. Yeah.
Wear your mask.
By myself.
Well, you've built up the tolerance. Obviously, you're good with
it. Yeah.
Trying. It hasn't been easy. It really hasn't been easy.
So
I think that the questions that I get most are just really the basic question. Is it safe to go back?
Right.
And that's really how it's phrased. Is it safe for them to go back? So you have that discussion of making sure the school's doing what they're supposed to do. And I'm like Kathy, I have written addendums to many a 504 plan that clearly states, you have to make sure that there's hand sanitizer, that they're wearing their masks, that they're doing the social distancing, and that you're doing all of those things. And if not, really empowering the parents to say, you can call the school and say you're concerned that guidelines being followed. We've also had parents concerned because they're being told once you make that decision of in-person or virtual, you stick with it for the semester. So they're leery about that. So we're giving them the out that says if you want them to go in person and you find that the school's not holding up their end and you get concerned, then we'll pull the homebound card and say for medical reasons, your child needs to come out of school. So, and I think that kind of eases their mind to say, we're firmly behind whatever decision you make. And if you feel the need to pull them out in the end, then we'll support that 100%.
That's great. It's like a safety net for the parents to know,
Yeah, exactly.
You see the cases rising and you're like, oh shoot, I don't think I made the right decision. That's the scary part of being a parent is, in a lot of our school districts we're the same, where you either decide they're all in for the semester, they're all virtual for the semester. And that's a really hard, some of our school districts made us decide back in like end of June, beginning of July. And our cases were not spiking as much as they are now. So I really feel for parents who had to make that decision so swiftly.
I know, and it sounds really harsh. Excuse me, it sounds really harsh. But actually, they had to look at their staffing numbers, right?
Yep. Right.
And they had to look at their budgets. How many people are they going to need to clean? How many teachers are they going to need? And all of these things. So there was a lot more going into it other than, just wanting to know. And, when I have these conversations with my parents, I'm kind of like you, Barb, it's like, I'm going to support you in whatever decision you make, because this, I tell them this is truly a family decision. And
absolutely,
I can't advise you one way or the other, honestly. I tell them we get consulted on these kids that have that inflammatory syndrome, that have been perfectly healthy kids, have no chronic illness, and then they end up with COVID, and they're really sick because they're in the hospital.
Right.
And then I've had kids that have been on biologics that have gotten COVID and haven't even needed to be in the hospital, and they were, they recovered quickly. We have no way of knowing at this point who's going to get really sick and who isn't. Right. And I don't, you don't know who else is in the home. You don't know if there's another parent or a sibling in the home that's immunocompromised as well, and or cancer, undergoing, intense chemotherapy, and they're very neutropenic. You don't know if, there's a grandparent or an elderly aunt or, multi-generational homes. You just don't know. And so, I explain all that to parents and just tell them, it's really, it has to be a family decision. I'll support you 100%, no matter what you decide.
Yeah, I think that's what everybody kind of needs to hear.
Yeah.
Well, there were some studies and some reports out of some of our friends from Ireland and Australia and England. And I feel like most of their recommendations were pretty similar to what we're doing here. This was mostly in pediatric patients too, so you guys can speak to this better than I can. But in Ireland, it was if they were in a recent flare, they considered them high risk and didn't want them to not go back to school, but they would be in that high risk kind of category. And it's kind of sweet what they call it in Ireland. Instead of quarantine, like we call it here, and I have other words for it, but they call it cocooning. So
it sounds so much nicer.
If you're in the high risk, category for kids, then they recommend that you cocoon. And then in Britain, they called it shielding, I believe. Shielding, yes.
Shielding.
So I think we also need to come up with some nicer terms for quarantine. Sounds so harsh.
Right.
I mean, quarantining or lockdown.
Yeah,
like a plague or something.
Prison. They most of the reports were basically, if you're a stable rheumatology patient, kiddo, you're doing okay on your medications. They support them going back to school. But I think it's like you guys said, you support the family decision, right?
Yeah.
And there's so many other factors that go into it.
with those kids that, would be higher risk, the ones that are getting Cytoxan or Rituxan or some of those, then your decision may be a little bit different in terms of, again, family decision, but it's reasonable to say, you might want to be virtual school for this 9 weeks or for this semester, and then shoot for being back in school, after Christmas, when you're done with this round of medications, and we feel like you're, a little bit better. That way, it gives them a little bit of hope that they can, move from quarantining into, back into school. But I do like how they kind of look at that and say, let's look at what your disease state is and your medications, and kind of advise you a little bit from there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we should all adopt cocooning, because it sounds so much
Doesn't
nicer.
it sound lovely? I want the cocoon.
It does.
I would like that, right?
Like nesting,
Cozy
right?
nest, right?
You're warm and cozy, and when it's all over, everything is beautiful.
You come out.
Yes.
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 Yeah, and I mean, we've had a lot of patients asking too, on the adult side, what should we do with our kids? And again, I mean, we kind of still tell them the same thing, like whatever you're comfortable with. And most of I would say a lot of our patients are stable on their medications, but you've got those that are like, if you can keep your kids home and do virtual, that just might be, one less risk you're taking.
Yeah. And that's what it's about. It's about your level of comfort with the risk, because none of us can give them any our patients, our families, that 100% guarantee that they're going to be fine.
Here's another one for you, Carrie. Okay, so we have mask tolerance. Well, how about their risk tolerance, right?
Yes, it is risk tolerance, right? Exactly.
What is their risk tolerance?
Absolutely. I mean, if it's going to cause you, and I've had this conversation on personal levels, not just, professional, if you're not comfortable sending your child back and it's going to cause you, anxiety, and all you're going to do is worry the whole time, your kid's at school and when they come home, then it's not worth it. It's just it's not worth it. But yeah, as far as patients who are on the immunosuppressants, what are you comfortable with? What is your risk tolerance?
Yeah. I mean, there are some kids that, from a pediatric perspective, we're not just concerned about kids learning and kids having learning disabilities that need the extra help to be, in person in school learning, but, the kids that actually have, food insecurity and things like that. When we can see the kids in school, we can tell, a lot of things, if they're coming to school and they're hungry, if they're wearing the same clothes every day and they're looking dirty, we can kind of see that, maybe they don't have running water in their house, right? Maybe they, maybe they can't afford the detergent, or, there's got to be something else going on. And then it gives us an opportunity to intervene. And so when we don't have kids in school, some of those things just don't get identified and checked, and we can't help families if we don't see them and they're not reaching out. So, it's really tough. It's really tough. It's, I know the teachers love kids. I know they love their kids when they're teaching. And I know a lot of them are really scared right now. And from what I read in some interviews that I've watched, a lot of teachers are retiring early. They're resigning, and because of this. And I just don't know what we're going to do if we don't have enough teachers. But I really wish they would just, I don't know. People say they really admire teachers and, they respect them and things like that. And I think teachers really need to be that that calming voice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we had talked about that in the beginning with nurses needing to be that calming voice.
The calming voice. Mm-hmm.
Right. We need to be the calming, sensible voice. And I think we need to start expecting more of that from our teachers. And, you know, the whole, you know, having N95s available to them so that they can teach safely. And of course, they're going to need those mask breaks, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
They're going to need them.
Yeah, we all do. I mean, even now, you know, still pop outside every now and again to take a little break.
Well, you have to just to breathe. You know, we've got some school districts. When you talk about teachers retiring and teachers being scared, teachers that are in high risk categories, and there's several schools that when they have looked at their pool of who are going to be our virtual teachers, and they have actually asked some of those higher risk teachers to say, we want you to teach. We understand that you don't want to be in the classroom, but you know, you can be a virtual teacher. You can do what you know, love to do. You know, you're not seeing the kids and, you know, day in and day out, but yet you're still teaching. You have some interaction. So, you know, that's another thing I think a lot of school districts need to consider to help, you know, kind of offset some of these teacher retirements when they're, you know, because of the situation.
Yeah, I wish more of them had. I don't know if some of the fear and anxiety in the school setting, I don't know if it's because they don't have enough medical support to help them, or if it's just kind of a reactionary sort of a thing.
And I wonder too if these teachers are feeling like if kids in their classroom come down with COVID or test positive, that they're going to be blamed for it. And I wonder how much of that plays into some of their anxiety too. Are they going to be blamed if somebody in their class, you know, tests positive? And that would, you know, cause me stress too to think that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just like us in clinic. You know, I was talking to a parent today who was, it was actually a grandma, and she was talking about her grandson is doing virtual school coming up, and he's in high school, and she was talking about how, you know, how afraid the family is of the older generation getting sick. And so I think that it's just something that we really need to, you know, intervene with the schools, you know, just help them, you know, reach out, you know, as medical professionals to the schools to kind of help them and, you know, try to maybe calm them a little. If we have, you know, I was telling this, I almost forgot where I was going, but this grandma that I was talking about today, I was telling her about, we were talking about contacts and numbers of contacts. And I was explaining to her that, you know, doing my clinic, I'm having anywhere from 20 to 40 contacts a week. And these are different contacts every single week. And how when I go home, I try and really limit my contacts because of how many I have at work.
Right.
And so, you know, if someone in our clinic comes down with COVID, you know, there isn't anyone to blame.
No.
You know, I mean, I wouldn't.
True. It's true, but yet I read stories, I hear things on the news, and so I do think that I wonder, just does that play a role? And maybe it doesn't, because you're right. There's no one to blame for it. They're going to be with these kids all day long, you know, and different kids too, especially those that are, you know, doing the split teaching. You've got half your kids half the week, the other half. Yeah. It again is more uncharted COVID territory.
It is.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we don't know, and it, you know, we're only 3 weeks into it here, and not every county in Georgia is open, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's tough. You know, what do you do when someone's positive, you know, in a classroom then? You know, are you going to be quarantining the whole class? You know, are you when a kid is positive in a class, are you going to be quarantining the teacher too?
Right.
I mean,
some of what
what
I'm hearing is yes, they're going to quarantine. They're going to quarantine the class, but just that class. And there are ways that they're contacting. I had a call from a mom today who had chosen virtual school for her child, and in kindergarten, but the school system said, you know, this past Monday is the first day of school for the county, and every student had to be in the school to, you know, check in, get the lay of the land. They spent the whole day there, and then the virtual kids went home. And she was nervous just even about that one day. And we kept saying, you know, the school's going to do everything right. It's one day, then it's virtual school. She called me today and said yesterday she got a call from the school that said, you know, her child had been exposed on Monday to somebody who tested positive. And so she was so upset, and, you know, she's like, I just don't even know what to say. I don't know what to do now. You know, so the child's being tested tomorrow because that was, and not symptomatic. Her child's not symptomatic at all. But at the same time, she's like, I feel like I need to get him tested.
Yeah.
You know, you do. And not only that, but that exposure led to her being exposed and the other child in the family, you know, potentially. So again, it's all uncharted territory.
It is, and it's tough. You know, we don't even know how many people, you know, have the virus and are asymptomatic, you know.
Right.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be tough. I was talking to a parent, and it was, I had actually heard about this on the news before a parent told me about it, but there's one school district that is not requiring masking for the younger children, for like the elementary
for the younger
grades.
Children.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But middle school and up.
Okay.
Yeah. And I just, you know, I don't even know what to say.
I don't know what to even say about that.
Was it Georgia, Barb, that there was a school that kids weren't wearing masks? So that
there was a high school that was in the suburbs of Atlanta that they didn't, and that did make the national news. Georgia's making a lot of national news these days for lots of reasons. But anyways, that high school, they didn't divide the kids like a lot of high schools are, just to keep the number of kids down each day. And I don't know if that was a school that didn't require masks, but the majority of the kids were not. And so they were all crowded. I mean, they were all crowded in the hallway.
Yeah.
And the school closed down. I mean, they closed down. They had to go back and reevaluate.
Sure.
And so, yeah. So there's
going to be a lot of that. I mean, I don't think it's, like you said, it's an uncharted territory. So when these kids go back, you may have the best plan in the world. Our school sounds like it has a solid plan, but when they go back, you don't know how it's going to work until you start, you know, really doing your day to day.
Right.
And when I look at some of the
things,
things,
could be 2 days in, and Carrie's kids are coming home.
I told them all I want is for them to go and get their Chromebooks that first day and bring them home, and we're set for homeschool.
Yeah,
there you go.
There you go.
So we're
and I think I'm hoping the majority of schools are doing, you know, the right things, and they're turning off drinking fountains, which to me, when I heard that at first, I thought, wait, what? And then I said, no, of course.
Yep.
So, you know, doing things like that, and just buying industrial size hand sanitizers, and a lot of the schools in our county, the kids are not going to the cafeteria for lunch. They're filing them through to get their hot lunch, if that's what they do. And then they're going back to their classrooms and they're eating there. So I think they're trying to take steps to keep exposures down.
Yeah.
But it's my
And
county. It's not
masking-
every county in Georgia.
Yeah, yeah. We wouldn't characterize all of Georgia by the one story we saw in the news.
Right,
But
exactly.
masking, I think here, Kathy, is it up to like the school district? What age they have to wear masks, or how does that work?
I don't know that. I think that's pretty interesting. Our governor has been really excellent with keeping us safe. And, a lot of people aren't happy with her because there are some businesses that still haven't been able to open up, mostly entertainment types of businesses. But we'll have to see what she says about it. I can't imagine she's going to support it. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
It would not be like her.
Yeah.
So do you have is there a date for going back to school yet for you, Kathy, for Michigan? When are schools starting? Or has that not been decided yet?
We typically don't start school until after Labor Day.
After Labor Day. So you have another week to get it figured out.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah, it's right around the corner, isn't it? Whew.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, we have a few more weeks yet.
I know.
Not really, no.
Yeah, ours got delayed a little bit, so we're starting actually they're starting like a week before Labor Day, but still it's a couple weeks behind what we normally would.
Yeah. So what do you think is going to happen? This is our topic of discussion at work in the cold and flu season, because I'm a little torn thinking it's going to be a disaster to thinking, maybe it won't be so bad because all these schools and kids are so much more diligent now about their hand washing, and they're learning how to cough and all these precautions. So I'm kind of torn. So what are your thoughts on cold and flu season and COVID?
I think it'd be interesting, like you said, with not just the hand washing, but all the mask wearing. Like, how much is that going to cut into, hopefully? But I feel like it's going to go one way or the other. I feel like it's either going to be like a disaster or we're going to be okay. But it's going to be tough. I mean, that was one of the questions on our parent chat today was, well, how are you going to know if your kid has COVID or the flu? Well, that's the $1 million question.
Right. Now, that's my biggest concern right there.
Yeah.
That's my biggest concern is that the two are going to overlap and we're going to have a really hard time figuring out what is what.
Yep.
Yes. And who should be, does every stuffy nose and cough mean you have to have a COVID test? So that's kind of the discussions we've been having, and in our general peds clinic, they're having it, to the nth degree, because they're trying to come up with some kind of protocol for the calls that will start coming in. And does everybody get COVID tested? Does everybody get flu tested first, or what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And I don't know that we have enough testing capability to really test mass numbers of kids all across the country. I was just reading something today where they were talking about the saliva test. It's not as accurate as they originally thought it would be. And so, are you really going to subject every kid that has a cough or a sneeze to that deep nasopharyngeal swab? I mean, that makes grown men cry. Come on. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
And if they're having to test for both flu and COVID, I mean, that's the part that I think that could be a total disaster.
Yeah.
So, I guess the hospital lab could handle, could handle the testing for the flu PCR and the COVID, antibodies, or, the swab. But I don't think just going outpatient, to urgent cares and all that, I just don't think we have enough capability there.
No.
Yeah. Well, we're preparing for the worst so we can be surprised by the better.
I don't even know what to think anymore. Honestly, it's like, I have no idea. I have no idea. And all this talk about, what's happening to folks after they get COVID, in the recovery and some of the long-term complications people are having.
Yeah. Right.
I think we just, we can't be nonchalant about COVID. We have to keep our guard up. We need to keep the social distancing, keep the masking, keep the sanitizing. And we have to remember, when chickenpox came out, we didn't know that decades later you could get shingles.
Right.
When polio was going around, we didn't know there was a thing that was going to be post-polio syndrome. It was going to happen as these folks, aged, that they would start deteriorating again. So there's just so much about this disease that we don't know yet. And I think it's a force to be reckoned with. I respect it. I think it's a formidable opponent.
Right? Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
But I'm glad we have, really good folks over at the NIH that really, have guided us through this, of what kind of precautions to take and, keep everyone protected. And I'm grateful that we have more of we have a more reliable PPE supply now, because that was probably one of the scariest things for me, is the thought of not having PPE at work.
Sure, right. Of course. And it was a real threat for...
It was a real threat at the beginning. Mm-hmm. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was.
So. And in not knowing the transmission, thinking you're going to get it on your clothes and bring it home,
Right.
And I think that, like in the setting that I'm in an ambulatory clinic setting, I started wearing like scrubs and, a paper isolation gown and, the N95 and the shield, and I'd be gloved and everything, going in. And then now that we know more about how it's spread, I started wearing regular clothes this week, and it's the first time that I've been wearing regular clothes, since this has started. And I'm not wearing a paper gown anymore, because we know that that's just not how, it's happening. My patients and parents are all masked. I've got an N95 on, and, the gloves and everything. Yeah, it's being worn. And
yeah,
we be careful, and we just put one foot in front of the other at this point in time.
Yeah. I mean, that's about all you can do. And, it never fails. In the winter, one of my little kids gets me sick. It never fails, and they'll get me sick, and they'll get me really sick. I mean, one year I got RSV from one of the kids. And,
oh my God.
No.
One time one of the little kids sneezed in my face, like point blank range. And then, of course, I got sick in a matter of days.
No, it's coming, right?
Yeah, right?
It's coming.
So maybe I'll stay well this season.
I think you're going to stay well this summer, because, now they're going to sneeze into their mask, and you'll be okay.
Oh, yeah.
Until they take the mask off and fling it across the exam room. So.
Well, I know that something early on that the American Academy of Pediatrics was advising not to have people say when you're looking in their throats, unless they had a sore throat or you suspected, a throat infection. because it escalates the transmission through the aerosol when they say ah. And so it's been interesting, being in rheumatology, we always look in noses and mouths. I mean, that's just part of, our head to toe of what we do. And so now when I ask them to pull their mask down so I can look in their nose and their mouth, and I'll say, okay, please don't say ah. I'm looking up. I'm looking at the hard palate. I'm not looking so much in the oral pharynx like the primary care providers are.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting that the American Academy of Pediatrics put that out there.
Because you're just so used to hearing that,
Right? Open, say ah.
Open and say ah, right? Yeah. They canceled choir, which rightfully, but think about choir, band, all of that has been canceled at the school. Sorry, virtual, but not in person. If you think about all the parents,
wouldn't it be interesting to have virtual choir though?
Yeah, I don't know how that's good. I don't know. I don't want to listen. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna find out the answer to that, Carrie, because one of my son's friends is actually an elementary school teacher, so he had to quickly pivot on how to do virtual music in the spring. And there was actually talk in both counties here that I'm associated with of just not doing any of those fine art type things. They weren't going to do any music whatsoever, which they've changed that tune. But I am going to find out how we do a virtual choir, because I think he'll find a way.
He will. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, there you go. So we'll see.
It might be kind of funny. It would be quite humorous, actually, because of all the different internet connections. Some better than others. Someone confusing, and I don't think you're going to get much harmony going there.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky. But I'll be there with my computer and my Zoom and Skype for the first performance.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
I give them a lot of credit for trying, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. A lot of creativity going on with these teachers right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of them are being really creative, which is so cool to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is good. We just need to keep everybody safe.
So do we have any questions out there? Let's see. Oh, I see Joni's on with us.
Joni's watching
Joni is sitting watching haircuts. Glad you were keeping yourself entertained with us, Joni. Hopefully haircuts went well without mom supervising. No telling what your kids told them to do.
They always get overruled by mom, so it's okay.
Oh my goodness. Oh, yeah, so interesting times again. So anything else going on in other countries, Carrie? My worldly president-elect.
Yes, I'm so worldly. Read the Cliff Notes version. I really feel like they seem to be on the same page. Australia was interesting. They were just like all in. If you whatever your rheumatologic, they didn't disease, that it was safe to go back, and everybody else seemed to kind of have levels of risk, and that kind of determined whether or not you would go back to school or not.
It does seem, even on a global kind of looking at it globally, that everybody's on board with getting these kids back to school.
Yeah.
All the countries are. There really aren't countries that are trying to cocoon or quarantine or keep. Yeah.
Their children. No, I think everybody agrees.
So I have a question for you. So do you think that getting all the kids back to school, how much of it do you think is for education purposes? And how much do you think is for like socialization, emotional, other purposes? What do you think?
I think a lot of it is the socialization, psychosocial part of that was at least for my kids, That's what they need. I'm more worried about, especially now we're almost 6 months that they've been home. And I worry a lot about how they socialize with other kids because they haven't. I mean, we've had a few play dates here and there, but I really, really worry about that. Educationally, I mean, again, it's going to depend on your kid. My kids, I know they'll learn, they'll be okay. But that's my biggest push to get the kids back in school is to have routine and you know, be around other kids. It's good for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And, you know, and even though I said everything that I said about the teachers and masking and, kind of being a little braver maybe about things, I really hope that people don't come down too hard on the teachers, and thinking and saying things like, the quality of education isn't there and, all this kind of stuff, because there's just so much more about going to school than just educating.
Right.
And how much of the school, I mean, I could get on a whole soapbox, about, standardized testing and how, are we teaching to testing or what?
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a lot to be said for what happens actually inside a school.
Mm-hmm. My sister is a teacher in our inner city schools here, and it's driving her crazy. She's not allowed to get into her classroom, so she'll have to do her teaching from home. Yet they haven't even told her like what platform they're using, what the schedule is going to be. I mean, she knows nothing. And school starts in I think they start the 8th. They start right after Labor Day, and it's killing her. I mean, a lot of the things you talked about. Kathy, about keeping an eye on these kiddos and knowing when they're not eating or not being provided with certain things. She's frontline there. And it's really scary to think about what's going to happen to some of these kiddos.
Yeah. When we talk about online school and virtual learning, some of the things, especially like the younger kids, what I would envision for education, and I'm certainly not an educator and no expert on this, just, from what I know from being a pediatric nurse practitioner and from being a mom, I would really hope that when they have their virtual school, that they have it almost like what we're doing, how, we're all here and they do their classroom like this, where the computer stays on for many hours. And okay, it's, a bathroom break. Let's all go to the potty. Okay, now, everybody, do you have your hand sanitizer next to you? Okay, let's see. Everybody, use their hand sanitizer, and everybody is doing this on the camera, and, having their snack together, and then just even having a casual conversation during snack time. And I think the virtual environment can be so much more enriching and, nourishing, and you can still, help the kids form relationships and get to know each other virtually by having the same kinds of conversations you might have in the classroom,
right.
Have them online and not just have it. Okay, I'm doing a 20-minute lesson, right now on this. And then, we're going to cut the camera and you're going to sit down and you're going to do your work.
Yeah.
Right. I think we can be a little more creative. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm worried that it's not going to be like that, Kathy. I mean, I'm worried that it's going to be more from 9 to 10, we're going to do these lessons, and then you're offline for a few hours, and your idea is ideal. That's how it should be, because these kids need to be interacting. I mean, virtual school is to keep them safe on whatever illnesses, immunosuppression, not to keep them isolated from their friends and their peers. So, and I do worry. And I've got a couple of teens that will be virtual schooling, and I do worry that based on, what we know of the families, that these teens are going to be in their room for this whole school year like they were in the spring, and they're not going to come out. And are they really interacting? Are they really doing their work? So, but I love your idea. That's how I hope all virtual schooling is this year.
Yeah, I really, especially for the younger grades, I really wish it would be like that. Just to bring the, just to bring that community feeling and the, establishing the relationship with your teacher. And, when you see kids for periods of time, just day after day after day, you're going to know how they normally look. You look like you're kind of sad today. What's going on? And things like that you would normally pick up in a classroom. But if you're only, giving them, okay, today's the schedule for today. This is your math. This is your reading. And, we're going to, read this first chapter together and then we're offline. I mean, that just isn't going to do it.
It didn't work. I mean, that's exactly how spring was for us. And it just simply did not work. The first couple of weeks, the kids were motivated and they're like, yeah, we'll get our assignments done. But then they would lose interest and there was nobody there to guide them. I mean, there was no teacher that was like live stream in front of them to answer questions or, so it was difficult. I mean, they would teach their lessons and you could hear them and see their videos and their PowerPoint presentations, but if you had a question, it's not like you can raise your hand and ask it. You had to like an email kind of situation, and then maybe you wouldn't hear back for a couple of hours. So there was no continuity to the lesson.
Yeah, and that's where, I think if you keep your computer on and you're doing your work while your computer is on, if the kids get to a problem they don't understand, they need clarification on, they can, the older kids can do like a chat window, right? They can say, can you review problem number, 13 or something? And then the teacher gets, it pops up, like I've got like kids asking about problem number 13. Let's go for this now.
That would work. That would be great.
So, well, I hope, because I think, Carrie, what you experienced is what I feel like the majority of the spring virtual schooling was across the board, because no one expected this and everyone was scrambling.
I would never slam our teachers or our school over that.
Absolutely not.
It was, they did the best they could with what they were given. And
and they've had time to adapt, I guess is what I'm saying. Exactly. So, we've had time to kind of see what we scrambled for. This worked and that didn't work. And so maybe planning now for this school year is going to be so much better because of the lessons learned in the spring.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a good lesson.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. We're all about to find out. So.
Well, the spring was pretty crazy. I mean, I'm surprised anyone even attempted virtual school, to be quite honest. I mean, people were just so caught off guard, so stressed, and I don't know how the kids could have learned.
No, it was.
I give everyone a lot of credit.
Me too.
The parents and the kids. I mean, I think all the parents out there are rock stars, man. I just don't know if I could do this. My kids, oh my God, I can't even imagine.
You do it. You do what you have to.
Of the things I was thankful for, it was that I was not homeschooling or virtual schooling in the spring. Like I could handle almost anything, but I'm glad it was not. Glad it was not bad.
I know, right? It's like, okay, I'll go to work if I don't have to.
If I don't have to do calculus today, I will go take care of an adult. So that's where I'll draw the line.
I like that. All right. Well, I'm really glad everyone out there could join us tonight. I hope you had as much fun talking about school as we did. Remember that commercial? Was it an Office Depot commercial where they're walking through the school or through the store and they're singing the most wonderful time of the year?
I haven't seen that commercial yet this year.
Right. Now it's the most stressful time of the year.
Yeah, well, we have to. I agree with Carrie. We got to come up with some positive terms here. We have to turn this negative vibe into this positive.
In this way, I'm going to be positive that we are going to have the best cold and flu season that we've had, because these children are going to be in school and they're going to be sanitized from head to toe on an hourly basis. So nothing will get them.
All right, Barb, I'm counting on that.
That's right. That's my positive vibe for you, Kathy.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone out there for being with us tonight. It was great having you with us. And thanks, Barb and Carrie, for joining me again for another great RNS Facebook Live. And everyone, stay well, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.